A lot really did happen throughout the crazy year of 2022. The VR industry, including hardware, software, and VR games, felt like a wild ride, but a good one. Here are the major things that happened in 2022 VR edition. 2022 started off with major VR news right off the bat. It was the first week of January when Sony revealed the specs of psvr 2, which we know now that it's coming out in late February. At this point in time, there was a rumor going around that psvr 2 could still be released in 2022. Another VR headset news in the middle of January revealed that Apple's upcoming VR headset will not be shipped out this year due to an overheating issue. We now know that this leak did have some truth to it, as Apple VR will not be released until most likely the first half of 2023. It was also at the end of January when one of VR's most popular game, The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, got a sequel, which was just released recently, 11 months later. Speaking of games that recently came out, it was around early February when Among Us VR started to share small snippets of gameplay on their Twitter. LA Rams was the Super Bowl champ of 2022. Meta was able to secure a spot with a Oculus Quest 2 ad with the Meta logo instead of the Oculus logo. One of the most popular games ever is Minecraft. It was still just February when Questcraft brought a Minecraft port to VR as a standalone app. It honestly is a really good port and I had a great experience with it. January was the PSVR 2 specs, and now Sony posted the design for what PSVR 2 will look like. The start of March was when we first heard about ByteDance working on the next generation of Pico VR headset, which we now know is the Pico 4, one of the biggest competitors to Quest 2. It was also in March when Meta VR headset achieved something significant. Steam shared that Quest series of headsets accounted for over 50% of headsets used on Steam, which just means more than half of the players use Quest VR headsets for pcvr games. On the last day of March, a VR action-adventure puzzle game, Moss Book 2, was released for the original PSVR. We'll talk about why this was an important release in the later part of the video. Around April was when we started to see a lot of reliable leaks regarding MetaQuest Pro, which was codenamed Project Cambria. It's crazy that these are the renders we suspected Quest Pro to look like, and it looks exactly like the final design of the headset. Speaking of the leaks, around this time was when one of the iOS 16 betas were released to testers, and it referenced a lot about the upcoming Apple VR headset. From the code, leakers were able to speculate that this headset will be released within the time frame of iOS 16, which will most likely go until September when iOS 17 gets released. There's no official announcement from Apple at this point, but more leaks are pointing that way to support that statement. The most hyped up VR game of 2022 goes to bonelab, and there's not much to argue about that. It was during April when we saw the official trailer for bonelab, and all of the speculation of when the game is going to come out started. So back to Project Cambria and MetaQuest Pro. May was the first time we heard from a reliable source that Project Cambria was going to cost significantly more than $800. Yep, they were absolutely correct, as MetaQuest Pro is just shy of double that. It was only in May when MetaQuest 2 got the hand tracking 2.0 update. This update featured the hand tracking you see now on Quest 2, which is actually really good. Surprisingly good. On the topic of Quest 2 software, this month was also when Quest 2 and apps could use the room setup feature and add your desk or couch or just any furniture on the room. Not much happened in terms of VR at the beginning of June, but in the middle of the month, we were able to see the possible design of the upcoming Valve Deckard headset, which is the new upcoming standalone headset from Valve. As they had massive success with Valve Index, dominating PC VR for about 3 years, I think a lot of people are excited for the standalone version, updated with the latest technology.
Nice.
I'm not exactly sure whether you use side quests to play games normally not available on Quest App Store or App Lab through side-loading games. If you do, June was the month where SideQuest introduced the easy installer to sideload SideQuest on Quest 2, so you didn't use a computer from that point on. Even if you don't use SideQuest, they literally offer pretty cool giveaways all of the time, so it'll be worthwhile to go check them out. July started the month off with pretty bad news, as GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2 had some amazing mods to support VR. It got a copyright claim and was eventually taken down. Let's shift gears to another VR game. Beat Saber introduced a new way to play the game with only one hand. The update is called One Saber, and I'm sure you already tried it out, but if you haven't, it's different but also a fun block cutting experience. I guess July was a bad month for VR as this next news came out. At the end of the month, Meta announced a price hike of Quest 2 by a whopping $100.
No! God, please, no! No!
They also stated that they'll be including Beat Saber for free to offset the price bump, but $100 equated to a 33% increase for the base model, which is pretty significant. August was a much better month for VR than July. Probably the biggest announcement we had was that Meta no longer made you get a Facebook account in order to play. We also got confirmation from Mark Zuckerberg that Meta Quest Pro will indeed launch in October, which was a guessing game prior to his announcement. Sticking with the topic of Meta, they did get some hate this month and it was well deserved, at least in my opinion. So it started out with Meta announcing that Horizon Worlds, which is a social universe app by Meta, will be released in France and Spain. Then Mark Zuckerberg was flamed on Twitter for posting this picture on his social media. I am somewhat of a Meta fanboy, but come on, this looks like something from the 90s. Well, enough of that. September was the first time we got a promising option for Valve Index, which is one of the most popular pcvr headsets, to receive a wireless option through an adapter. Pico hosted a reveal event for Pico 4 and confirmed the release for October. Around the same time, some were able to get hands-on experience on PlayStation VR 2 ahead of launch, and mostly all of them gave very positive feedback regarding the headset. It was on September 29th when Bonelab's release date trailer popped up, which said it will be released on that Thursday. I just remember the community going crazy about it. Right before October, we also got the possible design of Meta Quest 3, most likely releasing around the holiday season next year. It surprised a lot of people in the community as Mark Zuckerberg throughout the year talked about the big focus for VR headsets will be eye and face tracking, and the Quest 3 will not have eye/face tracking.
A big focus for us is face tracking and basically eye tracking so you can make eye contact.
The big news from October came from Meta Connect 2022, which of course included the announcement of Meta Quest Pro. We found out that Meta Quest Pro is super expensive. Meta and Microsoft partnering up to bring Windows operating software to Quest series of headsets, and Xbox Cloud Gaming to play 2D Xbox games in VR. All super cool things between Microsoft and Meta. Later in the month, we got a new update that allows free time trials of VR games within Quest App Store, a possible standalone full body tracking on Quest 2, and news that Quest 2 sales had a massive decline due to the price increase we talked about earlier. November started off with pretty major news that Meta banned anyone under 12 from using Rec Room. Many did suggest that this was a good move on Meta to protect the children, but they also lost a lot of player base as Rec Room was known for the squeakers. We also got various VR news throughout November, like psvr 2 launch date and price, Meta laying off 11,000 employees affecting the VR/AR team, the Apple VR headset to begin mass production in March of 2023, the launch of Among Us VR, a massive sale going around everywhere for VR headsets and games for Black Friday/Cyber Monday.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Now we're in December as I make this video. VR Game of the Year awards were hosted during the first week. Remember we talked about Mossbook 2 in the early part of the video? See, I promise we'll come back to it. Well, you connected the dots. Mossbook 2 won the VR Game of the Year for 2022. We also recently saw that Pico 4 was actually the fastest growing VR headset on Steam, which adds variety away from Meta's dominance in the market. We still have around a couple weeks to go for 2022, but December had a lot of announcements for VR games and continued or new VR headset sales for the upcoming end of the year holidays. We still have the chance to see major VR news before 2023, but 2022 was already a big year for VR, and I'm so excited to see what 2023 can bring. Let me know in the comments below what you expect or want to see in 2023 for VR.